Snoop was joking. It didn't sound to me like he was complaining about the movie and more about being stuck having to explain sexuality to his grandkid. Just hear me out though, because I don't think Snoop was saying there shouldn't be lesbians in his movie. I just think he was saying like, I have to be responsible for talking to them about this.
They're operating in bad faith. This whole, they don't want to explain it to their kids or whatever is bullshit. It's pretense. They simply don't want them exposed to it at all because they don't want it to be normal to them.
I watched the Snoop interview as well, and I thought for a second that it was just kind of jovial and like innocent, but he said they're putting it everywhere. Like, what is the they're putting it everywhere part, right? Like, what exactly are you talking about?
They were waiting for a moment where he is no longer confident. He is no longer stepping on people's necks. He is no longer pushing the envelope in this moment. He's looking weak. He's looking soft. He's in trouble. And this is the narrative that they want to run with.
We are more content with recording for views and sharing it with a TMZ entity otherwise to get some money or views as opposed to actually having some humanity for the person that's involved.
They'll see a woman or femme's queerness as being something that they can like latch onto for their own pleasure. And the moment it actually don't center them at all, they don't even know what to do for it.
Black people.
Hello.
Hey, what's up? I'll be forgetting you talking to us when you say that. I ain't gonna lie.
Right.
I'm not used to compliments like that.
Damn.
Let me tell you why I've gathered you here today. We have two topics, but I think they're connected. So, our usual discourse thing. I wanted to talk about Snoop Dogg's comments. Snoop Dogg recently went and saw an animated movie and was outraged that they had a lesbian couple with children, and he was like, how am I supposed to explain this to my children? I shouldn't have to explain this to my grandchildren, XYZ, whole tirade about we shouldn't have this kind of representation. So that was one thing. And then I had seen Lil Nas X was arrested. Lil Nas X, how the news was reporting it was that Lil Nas X was walking naked through the streets, having people are debating whether or not they believe it was a mental health episode or whether or not they think he was on drugs. I do know he was not, in fact, naked. He was in his underwear, so that's first and foremost. He was arrested. He was arrested and charged with the police claim that he assaulted them, and they're charging him with a bunch of felonies, saying that he was resisting arrest. I have several comments that I want to make about that as a criminal defense attorney. Before I open this, I'm going to let Erica take it, because Erica had made some commentary around Lil Nas X that I really enjoyed, and I hadn't seen anything like it. But Lil Nas X, he was charged with resisting arrest and like assaulting the officer, but there's no other charge. For there to have been a valid arrest in and of itself to justify what the arrest he was resisting was, there had to be some other charge. But yet the only thing he is charged with is resisting this arrest. So what were you arresting him for? There's no lewdness. There's no these other things. So in and of itself, it's a bullshit fucking case. It's a bullshit case, period. And it's something the police regularly do when they want to go fuck with people that they don't necessarily have anything to criminalize you for. And then they say, okay, I'm resisting arrest. But then it's an added layer of bullshit. The fact that they've like ramped it up to a felony, and it's all out over Front Street. And I find it interesting that we see the video footage of him walking throughout the street, but we don't see this video footage of this alleged assault that required all these felonies. So, Erica.
Hi. Yeah, so I think the Lil Nas X situation just makes me sad, honestly. That's really what I'm present to. And I see a lot of speculation on what potentially could be going on with Lil Nas X, but I don't see a lot of speculation around, like, I really hope that he has support. I'm not really seeing that. I'm seeing folks really make jokes about him. My first thought was like, where are his friends? Why is he alone? There is capitalism thrives off of Black pain, right? And the fact that TMZ is there to take pictures and take video to create the spectacle of a Black queer person, it just really upset me. And I believe he was on Victoria Boulevard, which is a predominantly white area. So I'm not surprised that although he is just presumably walking down the street in his underwear, which is not illegal, he's not breaking any laws in LA, that the police are called and now the police are involved to an extent that is just very unfortunate. And I just think about rock stars, especially white rock stars, and how they're kind of celebrated for drug use, if that is the case, we don't know. But that's not happening with Lil Nas X. We're not seeing this sort of like, ooh, rock out, do your thing. I feel like we're seeing the same vilification that somebody like Whitney Houston got. And that makes me this makes me deeply sad because there's just no protection of Black queer people. You know, I think about Lindsay Lohan, who, you know, is not a rock star, to be very clear, not a rock star, but Lindsay Lohan had, you know, her experiences with drugs and has come back and now has had a full, you know, makeover. And she's been asked multiple times if she had a facelift, and she says, no, I just do eye patches in the morning. So I'm like, when Lil Nas X comes back after being healed and, you know, whatever else support they needs, I want everybody else to have the same energy with Lil Nas X. Like, yup, it's just giving eye patches in the morning, right? Nothing happened. You know, you get to have your rebound, and just far too often, Black people, in particular, Black, queer, and trans musicians, people in general, right? And the fact that Lil Nas X is a celebrity and being treated this way, just, you know, you can already see how Black, queer, and trans people are treated when they don't have access to celebrity. So it's just deeply disheartening, is what I've been talking about.
I think what I saw a lot of was people assuming it was a publicity stunt,
Yeah.
assuming that it was one of Lil Nas X's newest antics to sell something.
Mhm.
And I guess maybe to some degree I can understand, like, I can't completely you know, scoff at people making that assumption based on, you know, the different stunts that have happened from Lil Nas X. I will say, to me, it's clear that isn't it once someone is getting arrested and charged with serious crimes and whatnot. I think it should be fairly clear to everybody. But two, I think it's interesting the animosity that people have towards Lil Nas X. Like, Lil Nas X is talked about as though he's this incredibly controversial, hated figure. And I'm like, for why? Like,
Yeah.
for why? Realistically, for why? It's like, what are the worst things you do? So Lil Nas X had Satan dancing on the pole, or dance down on the pole, the Satan in hell. I'm like, yo, yeah, y'all let Lady Gaga get off Alejandro and all kind of Judas and all kind of shit. That's one. Two, this idea that because Lil Nas X, like, what is the frustration, is feeling like he does a lot of antics to sell things. So I'm like, as opposed to who? Like, I'm from a generation of a world where the Game and 50 Cent are starting rap beefs with niggas they've never spoken to as a matter of consistent rollout, like, promo, like, where 50 Cent and Kanye have their whole fake battle to do this and the next thing. Like, antics, this is a reflection of the machine, like what people need to me, when I see Lil Nas X, if Lil Nas X is having a mental health episode, like, I don't know him, I don't know all the things that could be going on in his life, what could cause all these things. But if I was just judging as a consumer and what I see, I'm like, yeah, it makes sense to me. The pressure to what Old Town Road is. When Lil Nas X came in, Lil Nas came into music and celebrity in a very unconventional way. I made this what seemed like a one-off super hit, this like country blend song that didn't get, despite being like so successful, they didn't want to give it any of the credit that it deserved. Oh, you can't be country, you must be hip hop because you're Black, only for him to come out as gay. And then they say, oh, well, you can't be hip hop, you can't be in this arena because you're gay. And so now you're just kind of on an island floating on yourself, like just trying to kind of, you know, be pop, but no one will let you. It's all this animosity that you're getting from every avenue. Like, doesn't he have to do a lot to sell, to be relevant, to rise above this certain level of, like, everybody's praying on his downfall? They wanted him to be a one-hit wonder when he wasn't good enough. Then, oh, he's gay, so now that's the issue. Then him being too gay, making that a part. It's like, what is this not expected? Is this not a reasonable result to how Lil Nas X has been, like, treated in his career?
It's like one of the things that we're seeing with the whole thing. Like, I'm not a Lil Nas X hater, but I'm not actually a fan either. Like, I don't like, but I've heard his music. I think it's great. I think, why doesn't he get the same grace as other like rock stars who have fallen? We'll see, like you said, you mentioned a few other people who are white, who get that rock star attached to them, like, oh, you know, just, you know, tripping out, take them to rehab. Here, we have people from all communities who are like, oh, just crackhead, no, not worth it. So there isn't even a level where it's like, okay, give him the rock star title, or there isn't even give him grace title. He's not even following in any of it. This is where they want to diminish his character enough to send him off. And I think that's the worst part about seeing how the narrative is being played out on social media. It has everything to do with him being Black. It has everything to do with him being Black and queer and open and confident. So the moment that this is what I think on social media, what we're seeing is they were waiting for a moment where he is no longer confident. He is no longer stepping on people's necks. He is no longer pushing the envelope in this moment. He's looking weak. He's looking soft. He's in trouble. And this is the narrative that they want to run with. So they'll stick with that. And that's, to me, the worst part of it all. Nobody's looking for information. Earlier on, we were talking about this, and you were saying there are holes in people's stories and people are running with speculation, but nobody is willing because they don't give a damn. They like the narrative of Lil Nas X being weak and being on drugs and needing help and being in trouble, instead of actually going to do research to push out the truth. You know, what should be questioned, and that's what the law is saying about
They like
him
fall offs.
right now.
People
And
like
that's
fall
what
offs.
sucks to see.
Everything is like a spectacle here in America. You know, I first came across it just scrolling online. Like I saw it trending. So of course I'm curious to see what happens. And when you see what's happening, to me, if you take away the fact that he's somebody that's famous, my first reaction would be this brother is in trouble. He needs some help. And especially if you say that he's in a predominantly white, wealthy neighborhood, brother outside with his underwear, he needs some help. Because I don't know, like it appears as if he was maybe running from something, or like somebody could have been harming him. So in that situation, immediately it like we are more content with recording for views and sharing it with a TMZ entity, otherwise to get some money or views, as opposed to actually having some humanity for the person that's involved. And outside of that, I did not know about the charges until yesterday. My mom sent it to our group chat. And my first thought was like, yo, Black folks in Hollywood in the music industry, like, don't make it out. Like you think about an industry that it was the foundation was our exploitation. The number one form of entertainment in this country was blackface for the longest, right? Like, how do we even expect somebody, a Black queer man, a young man, I'm assuming he's still, I don't know how old he is, but I'm assuming he's still in his 20s. Like, how you even traverse through this? In a situation where you're likely the minority of the minority to continue to make a livelihood. If he was to stop today, like, he has his whole life ahead of him to try to figure out something else when he was essentially bred and nurtured to be an entertainer. But America does not rest upon treating Black folks with any type of dignity in any type of situation like this. So my first reaction was just hoping that brother was okay. And then understanding what you all said too. I'm quickly reading. I'm seeing felony charges. Again, like you said, we see the videos of him not streaking, but walking through the street. But where's the abuse? And again, punitiveness as opposed to restorativeness. If you're an officer or just a human being, how can I help you out? If I'm taking you in, it's to make sure that you get somewhere safe, not to arrest you and to ensure that you're going to be in prison for at least a year.
And I think that's the problem, as abolitionists often talk about, with having the police be the solution to all the problems. If I'm drunk walking the street in my drawers, not harming anybody, in my cowboy boots on a weekend night, let's say I'm high, let's say I'm drunk, or let's say I'm having a mental health crisis, or some combination of those things, I probably don't need a uniformed armed police officer to help fix this problem. That's not a fix. The police allege that he charged at them. Maybe he did. I don't know. But let's say in this rare instance the police are telling the truth, and he runs at the police officer. Do we believe that he was a threat to the police officer? Did the police officer believe he was a threat to him? Like, what does that mean? And the problem with resisting arrest, and I'll let the legal people talk about this more, but it's like disorderly conduct. You can apply that when you want to.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
And it's a catch-all. It's a catch-all, and it usually gets used against people who you think ain't doing something right. And we already see the criminalization of queer folk in public space, because we believe that they don't belong there, and we believe that their very presence is a moral transgression, and therefore we have to try and make it a legal one.
I saw this one one of the tapes I saw. I can't remember their name right now. I think their name is Sade, but they were talking about how they work with a lot of adults who have dealt with psychosis. Like that's like a population they've worked with, and that a bulk of the people that they help have these charges when they're in psychosis, and some of them don't even like remember what they allegedly did to aggravate the police, but now they have charges, or they have to do, they're on probation, or they have to do community service. And not, again, speculating what actually is going on with Lil Nas X, because none of us really know him personally, but in a larger issue, it is like the fear to have, even in moments where I haven't experienced psychosis, but just I have anxiety disorder. The way that like mental and emotional health, like a mental and emotional health episode, can have you act, and you're so afraid, or you don't know what's going on. That being criminalized and penalized, and now you're on probation, now you're catching charges, is wild. It's crazy, and a larger like nobody. Instead of people seeing him, they're trying to do TikTok videos and TikTok dances with him. You know, it ain't just the police that kind of are responding in a way that's like, is that really cool? Like, people are walking up to him just trying to get like a viral video, and no one knows off the top of their head a resource to call besides 911 to be like, hey, I see this person on the street that might need some assistance or some help.
No, because we have an idea that anything that seems like a problem should be locked away, like should be thrown away. It's like, oh, you know how you're supposed to act out here, you know what you're supposed to be doing, and if not, all that people care about is that they're out of their face. It's the same thing like with homelessness. When people complain about seeing homeless people in their neighborhood, but they're not complaining or advocating that those people be given homes. It's like, lock them up, throw away to your campings, whatever you do, I don't give a fuck. Just get them from out of my sight. Mm-hmm. It's like, that's why America had ugly laws, right? Like, anything unsightly, anything that we don't like, it shouldn't be in our face. And I think that's why these things are to the original, like Snoop Dogg, and how this is related to Lil Nas X. And to piggyback off what Mark was saying about how they just ultimately don't think that like Black queer people should be in public life, like they shouldn't see you. It's the same way, like that inherent the ability to see you. When you think about it and you unpack it on the level of like Snoop Dogg, what Snoop Dogg is like, and who Snoop Dogg has been throughout Snoop Dogg's life and the different spaces Snoop Dogg has existed in, for Snoop Dogg to be the person to be like, this should not even be represented, because I shouldn't have to explain that these people and these dynamics exist, right? Like, that in and of itself says how like comfortable we are with this idea that like they shouldn't be a part of public life. And if they are, like, oh, if you're gonna have to be gay, you should keep it cute. Mm-hmm. Keep it cute, keep it mute, none too much, because I view inherently, because I see you as deviant, anything you do is like, it's like when you think about it, what Snoop Dogg is complaining about is the existence of that family. Like, it's an animated movie. They're not it's a Pixar movie, right? He's like, oh, how do I explain this to my kid? Like, oh, that's mommy and mommy. It would be finished. But you see it as a sexual, because that's all. And when you think about it, what else would Snoop Dogg, considering all Snoop Dogg's lyrics, life, everything that Snoop Dogg has ever done, what is Snoop Dogg seeing this lesbian couple as, other than like through the male gaze of like sexual performance? So when he sees it as like the sexual thing you're exposing my kid to, because he doesn't see it any other way. He's not seeing it as this family structure, I think. Mark.
I mean, it's interesting, but even if he saw it as sexual, I mean, he's Snoop Dogg. He's been a rapper for 30 years. That's just Tuesday. You know what I'm saying? Like, it ain't that wild to him. Like, this concept wouldn't be that wild to him anyway. You know, I think I will shoot him a little bit of bail. When I heard the interview and I heard how he was talking about it, it sounded different than how I read it. So Snoop was joking, and he was less, it didn't sound to me like he was complaining about the movie and more about being stuck having to explain sexuality to his grandkid. Like I'm just trying to watch this movie, and now my grandkid is like, how they got a baby, how these two women got a baby. And he's like, he said he tried to escape past it, but the kid won't let it go. And he like let your mom and them answer that. Like, I don't want to talk about this. Basically, like, I don't want to talk about this in the movies. So I didn't take it as much as him saying like, I don't.
That's so crazy, considering that we tell boys 4, 5, 6, 7 years old that they need to get some pussy. I think that's. Oh, I mean, I know. Just
hear me out though, because I'm only saying that the thing that I don't think Snoop was saying there shouldn't be lesbians in his movie. I just think he was saying, like, I have to be responsible for talking to them about this. But to your point, it shouldn't be hard to talk to them about this. And we talk about sex all the time with kids, especially boys, right? To Christine's point, like, and
Not
so to
well.
act like suddenly Snoop of all people, the guy that
Snoop
walks
of all
on the
people.
award shows with women on chains, the person who's been talking about bees ain't shit but hoes and tricks since 1992,
Also,
suddenly can't talk about this is weird to me.
people be fighting for their right to this is my thing, especially Black people. Let's not like, but people be fighting for their right to control everything about their children's lives. They don't see their children as autonomous beings. You want to teach and indoctrinate your child about every Jesus thing. You literally, they are a child. You teach them. You are quite literally responsible for teaching them everything. So why all of a sudden is it a burden the minute it's like only suddenly it's like I'm only responsible for teaching them a finite amount of things. This is outside of the spectrum of shit I'm supposed to teach them. Are you not responsible for teaching them about the world around them, teaching them life, preparing them for things? So is that not your moment? Like when it comes up, you know, when they be like, oh, we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. Ain't that's the bridge? Like when you've gotten to the bridge, aren't you supposing that's your job as the parent to walk over it?
As a
You know
parent,
what's
grandparent.
interesting? You know what's crazy to me? Because Snoop Dogg himself is somebody who flips, just like we'll get to Boosie him
Erica,
as well.
like, go after.
But
Ooh.
Snoop Dogg is somebody who flips, you know, he and anywhere he goes, same way I see for Kanye West as well. Anywhere he goes, it's like always respected. But as soon as they critique something, like you could talk about, you know, two women, you could talk about so many women, you can talk about drugs, money, cars, and hoes, all the things. But then, you know, it goes too far when you see the relationship when it's LGBTQIA plus community representation in a child's movie. But yet when there's over sexualization, when it's just, you know, cis or whatever, ain't no problem, ain't no issue. It's just you, but you can talk about it there, right? Because I remember growing up, there were so many sexual innuendos between man and woman in cartoons or any other things that we've seen. But it's the where it stops is when it's LGBTQIA plus. Snoop is also the person that has, you know, a gospel album and talks about the Lord and all this other stuff. And don't nobody say nothing there, but then he'll flip back and talk again about money, cars, and hoes, drugs, pimps, all the things. And we love to hear it all, right? But why, when it comes to this conversation, especially when it centers, you know, LGBTQIA plus, that's when everybody be like, but did Snoop lie though? But did Snoop lie though? But
yeah,
when it's represented in the other way, he says nothing. When it's over sexualization of women or whatever, he says nothing. But now this is where they draw the line. Boosie is also a representation of this, especially when it even comes to Lil Nas X. We know how he's spoken about Lil Nas, all the things. You know, two red bones kissing in the backseat. I've talked about that all the time. That is my song, right? I can bar for bar, lyric for lyric, but like in college, it's what we used to do. Two red bones kissing in the backseat, you know, all the things. But Boosie has a problem with Lil Nas X. His daughter also is a part of the community and he's disrespectful to her living. So it's also when it touches home, when it gets too close to your stuff, that's when it's too much, when it's like at my front door. But, you know, that's what I don't like. These people are never living in their own truths. They're always, you know, on the mic for everything else. They speak, and as soon as they throw it out there, they don't really have to, you know, answer to it no more. It's in the world, and all the hateful people have now consumed it and are spitting it out and regurgitating it in so many think pieces. That's what I can't stand.
Erica.
it appears.
Yeah,
Erica and Ernest.
Yeah, I watched the Snoop interview as well, and I thought for a second that it was just kind of jovial and like innocent, but he said they're putting it everywhere. Like, what is they're putting it everywhere part, right? Like, what exactly are you talking about? My kid is 2.5, and I have watched Lion King more times, I think, in the little time that he's been alive than I've ever seen it in my life when I watched it as a kid. And Nyla and Simba, that is essentially a sex scene. Can you feel the love tonight? Like, those two lions are hooking up. And then at the end of the film, there is a little lion. So So how come there's no question of where did the little lion come from, right? The little lion and Lion King came from the same place that the lesbian couple in the Buzz Lightyear movie came from. It came from a uterus, right? Like, it's not that hard to explain these things to young people. It's just this trepidation around queerness is very par for the course here as somebody who has endorsed Trump, right? Like, I mean, how are you going to explain that to the young people in your life, right?
And there's a right wing tactic that they often use whenever there's a moral, what they call a moral issue, which is usually somehow hinging around other people's humanity or as Rebecca said, just their existence. And it's to say, well, what about my kids? Moms for Liberty, their whole basis, the reason why, if you look at Moms for Liberty, when they attack school curriculum, when they attack libraries to ban books, when they talk about sexuality, it's always, they call themselves moms because then it frames them as the concerned parent who just wants to protect their children. Almost none of them, like, when they go to South Carolina and tear down the school boards, they don't got no kids in South Carolina school. I haven't known they got kids. But by framing it as a moral crisis that these babies are being affected by, it also kind of reiterates this idea subtly that queer identity, trans identity, black, brown, whatever, that somehow these identities are inherently harmful and maybe even predatory toward children. So even the complaint itself becomes a form of violence.
He thinks that queerness should be in porn. He thinks that it should be on the L word, which he was on.
And only his porn.
Only his dog was on the L word. So,
and I was gonna say, like, not for nothing, I think Snoop Dogg is consistent. Like, I think Snoop Dogg I've seen Snoop Dogg criticized before at the rise of female rap. Like, when female rappers started getting very popular, he criticized them that all they talking about is their pussy and sex and this and that. And that sounds so insane, right? From somebody who was like, fought rape charges, has made songs about how ain't no fun unless the homies could get none, like all kind of nonsense, right? Like, but it makes sense. All Snoop Dogg's, like, while you might think of it as like, oh, you have hypersexual music, and here you are critiquing these, so that doesn't make sense. If you listen to the kind of hypersexual music is in that women are objects. Women are not autonomous beings to be the ones that take the mic, to be centered, to have sexuality. They are conquest. They are there for the purposes of their enjoyment. It is nothing to do with women's pleasure. So of course, that's the antithesis to the music that Snoop Dogg makes and the world that he likes to see. It's like anybody who told you who've been married for a million years and told there was a period in his marriage where he decided he wanted to be a fucking pimp. He started hanging out with Bishop I want to pimp. I want to pimp. My dream is to pimp. That man is not gonna like women at the mic like, yeah, this is what I desire. Like, no.
Which makes it even more, it's the fact, I can't explain lesbianism. It adds the objectification aspect to it because so in my own experience and just the way that a lot of cis men act, they'll see a woman or femme's queerness as being something that they can like latch onto for their own pleasure. And the moment it actually don't center them at all, they don't even know what to do for it. They don't know what to do with that. It's very similar when they'll see like two femmes together. They can maybe understand when they see a stud and a femme together, go, oh, someone's being a man in that dynamic. But they see two women that, well, no, they be wanting to try to studs too and say, well, you ain't had the right dick yet. Men are just ridiculous. But point being, they can't grasp that like two women could be in a loving relationship dynamic that happens to also include sex because they just see if women are together, it's just for sexual pleasure, including their own viewing pleasure. And that's misogyny, homophobia, queerphobia. This all, I mean, I'm ready for us to really, as a Black community, really grasp and hold on to the fact that we have a homophobia problem. Like it gets crazy the moment there's some gayness in the room or gayness is being taught. Like it, you would think we would. Let me mince my words, but it gets crazy. It gets crazy.
I think the contradictions too of, if I'm not mistaken, Snoop was the one who named Shad Moss Lil Bow Wow, and I think nurtured him in that environment. Wasn't he on tour? I don't want to misspeak on that, but I think he was on tour for a little bit, like on the album with some.
Yeah, like Snoop Dogg acted as they had that, like, you know, he's my nephew. Snoop Dogg was on all across the first album.
Right. So he's on the album, appearing in the Gin and Juice video. I mean, we know like what type of stuff was going on in that environment. I mean, when he says he does, who is expected to then explain it to your child, right? Like I'm like, you don't want to have that conversation. Then who is having a conversation? I think we have to be comfortable resting in being uncomfortable. I think that's a part of your maturation process. I think to Christina's point, a lot of us were raised in environments like truthfully very homophobic. Like the language we heard, the language that was permissible, and having to come to an understanding as a young man and say that at some point this ain't right. This doesn't make any sense. This is this is homophobic and this is anti-queer. So for me, it's you just simply explain what it is. You explain the situation, like how they adopted a child. And again, to your point, like, why does it always have to be so sexualized to the point where you're thinking of having to, that child, hopefully, is not even thinking about that in a sexual manner. And if they were, why would they be?
I think I'm gonna be the one to say it. Everybody can shoot me with a big gun. But because they're operating in bad faith, this whole they don't want to explain it to their kids or whatever is bullshit. It's pretense. They simply don't want them exposed to it at all because they don't want it to be normal to them. They have no problem explaining to them. They know the same way we understand representation and the need for all these things in every other context, and we know why it matters. We know why we think Black people should be represented in shows. We know why we think you should be seen in a positive light. We know that. We know why we wanted to be in the animated movies. We know why we wanted a Black princess. We know why we wanted a Black superhero. You know why all this shit. You get it. They do not want to see the same level of equality, the same way that what they want for Black people. And to them, Black people means cis-het Black people. You know what I mean? Like a certain kind of Black person. What they want for them is not what they want for them. And that's period. They know that if their children are not, we are conditioned into homophobia. We all know anybody who's ever had to unlearn any homophobia or has witnessed homophobia knows that it happened throughout your life. It was a certain level of normalization of the people in your family, the elders around you, just treating it as though it was a matter of fact to consider them other and odd and to make fun of them and to consider it you knew. And that's what it is. And they know that if you watch a movie as a kid and you love it and it has queer people in it just existing like everybody else and you like them, you know what you will think? Queer people just exist like everybody else and we can like them, no problem, normal. And that doesn't work. And that's really all it boils down to. They just won't say that. So they think it's easier to just preclude the conversation. Like if you don't represent queer people, if they have to perform like this, if they have to keep it quiet, if they're not there, then it makes it easier to keep making them other, like that weird, small niche, make them like a niche population that you don't have to care about because that's what people love to do. That's why they find it so easy to attack trans people and be like, oh, they're only 1% of the population or whatever, because it's like, who gives a fuck? It doesn't matter. They're over there. And so they need you to believe queerness is over there. If it's right here, then you wouldn't abuse it. And I think that's the truth.
It's a massive failing of sex education because I would bet major money, that Snoop Dogg does not know where babies come from. I know that he has kids.
Please.
I know that he has kids, but a lot of people do not know how babies are made. And somebody that's a misogynist will think that an anatomical penis is required, and it's not. Right? You don't even need to have quote unquote penis to vagina sex in order to have a kid. Hello? And I just think that is a missing with sex education. And this could have been addressed if that child had sex ed in school. Right? Like, and clearly that's not the case. Misogyny, homophobia go hand in hand. And again, of course, someone who is anti-Black like Snoop Dogg, who wants to align himself with Trump, it wants to align himself with homophobia. Homophobia is just a function of whiteness, right? It's a function of white supremacy. I feel like whenever we see it in Black community, it's a fear of like, oh, we got to keep it together. We got to, be respectable. We can't be seen as they're already talking about us. We can't do nothing else. Let's keep it cute, be cishet. And that's just, well, they're already talking about us. They're already relating to us as other. So
it's selective morality. It's
for us.
It's a selective morality. They want to stick to that, like Olay was saying. If we act like, right now, the same way that they've been acting like a few years, like, okay, we'll accept them about this much. We'll add a little bit here, we'll add a little bit there. But the moment we have like a celebrity speak out about it, then we can be like, you know what? you know, Snoop Dogg is saying something that we all really want to say, but it's because you guys want to be ignorant. It's the fact that if we keep on acting like this thing hasn't existed in the church, in your cultural household, in any of that, if we act like this was not ever existing, we can continue to move on, then we can keep acting like it's, oh my gosh, this is so faux pas. This is, how could this be? This is not normal. In reality, it's always been here. Queerness, LGBT, all the things, it's always been here. And the fact that we want to treat these people as they are, which are normal, everyday people, it bothers people like Snoop Dogg. Again, it's selective morality. For the things that he does and the things that he says, it can't apply to his household. It can't apply to his daughter who just had a child. You know, it can't apply to any of like the things that are closest to him, but he can rap about all the other things that disrespect women, over sexualize women, you know, rape, all these kind of things. F the police right here in the 90s, but then it's like, let me align myself with whiteness, with Donald Trump, and the same fuck the police and all the cases, and they don't like black men. That, you know, now it's like, you know, maybe y'all just need to start, you know, getting your money up, you know, associating yourself with more white men, and, you know, maybe y'all are the problem. And we'll see that more and more, even when in the church where I talked about one of the pastors, Pastor Philip Mitchell, where they can get on the pulpit, again, selective morality, and say that it ain't the black kid. I mean, it ain't the cops. It's the black kids that are the problems, and they're not listening. And people will believe this thing. So to make it act like this is normal, to say that queerness is not a normal thing, if we continue to do that, then that's okay. But that is the ignorance that they want. That's the hill that they want to die on, and we can't let them. Like, we got to keep on pushing it and pushing the envelope. You guys are uncomfortable because maybe you either like it, you know, maybe you just want to. I don't understand why it bothers you. It doesn't mess with your household. It doesn't mess with your money. These people, nothing. They're regular folks that deserve all the things. But here we are, where you want to act like you went to the movies and that little scene is messing up your grandson, when your whole entire catalog is disrespectful to your daughter. I don't know, but that's just where I stand with it.
Because the visibility of queer, and like what you're saying, Rebecca, on like what did they do to them, why they're so upset, is like their visible queerness is proof of bucking the system. Like, when you think about it, right, to you know, explain and give some grace to black men, or some understanding, is they're being forced to perform a certain kind of masculinity. You're taught and raised that this is all that you're allowed to do. This is what is expected of you, and this is what it has to be, especially for black men that are placed with this special like hypermasculination. Like, if you've ever even seen Boosie's comments, like in Boosie's many tirades towards Lil Nas X, Boosie said once, he said, the problem he has with Lil Nas X is, like, he said something to this effect of, wow, little boys out here trying to be straight, this is what you're showing, you know what I mean? Like, and it says something there, like, you know, we want to laugh at, you know, what it says about Boosie, but all your jokes, it says something about what he sees as an obligation. There's an obligation to perform like this and be like this and da-da-da, and here you are, tempting, you know what I mean? And like we laugh about it.
My own business, trying to be straight.
That's what I was gonna say.
Meanwhile, he paying folks to have sex with his underage son.
Hello.
Disgusting.
Trying to say that too.
I'm very gay. Gay as the day is long, and I didn't get a lot of queer media as a kid. To the Moms of Liberty. Hi, Moms of Liberty. I didn't see nothing. I saw pixelated porn stuff, but that was about it. And I'm still gay, and I'm.
But
not.
when you're really queer, when you're really gay,
I didn't have Lil Nas X, and we still gay, so I don't know what I'm trying to do, but it's not gonna work.
Because when you're really gay, you find the gay in the. Find it. I was watching Cast the Musical at 3, being like, I like the way them suits look on these.
Yes.
On these boobs. Wow. You find the gay.
Yeah.
One thing I gotta say though too, like with Rebecca, we can't even fully give Snoop the credit for the political phase of rap, because he was just affiliated with NWA. He wasn't on the police, you know. So like, he wasn't even. It's what we have seen. This has kind of been normal, and I think for me too, like, I as a parent have been so concerned with the hypersexualization I've seen of women in general. Like we talking like heterosexual relationships. Like soon as a commercial come on, folks having sex. Like that's common now. I'm
Like,
concerned
what
with
is Love Island and all in perfect match? What I'm seeing,
Never
just
seen
fucking
so
get in the
much
bed.
coochie
Y'all
being
just
thrown
get in the
around.
bed.
Like it's so much.
so like, I mean, and I'm sure Mark can relate. When you think about how we grew up as hip hop fans, the stuff that we were exposed to and the stuff that we still have to unlearn from rap music or the videos that we have seen. Like I've seen so many memes of people making jokes about like the BET Uncut era and stuff like that. Or Jason Wilson like has eloquently describes just the pressure you have to perform as a young man, not even truly realizing what that even entails because you've been overexposed to what you think it truly is.
Can we put a pin on those? That the people, kids, boys are trying to be gay, the pressure to be a man. I love, I say this joke all the time that I call every like man in my life heterosexual pending. And I say it in jest somewhat, but I do think I'm like, if without these constructs, right, telling us who to be, there would be a lot more queer people, or there
This
wouldn't
way
even
you
be a
always
queer,
lose niggas with everybody
huh?
got a little bit of
I done
gay.
been
I
at
said
the
this way you
with them
always
cherries.
lose niggas.
And I'll lose them because I gain them. They know I'm speaking to them. There's a certain part of them right here that they don't want to be seen. But it's I just do also a fan. I like to see two boys kiss. I do. But that whatever. That's we're not here for that.
We can
What
be.
was I saying? Damn, we can be.
like
You just have to get that out. You just have to
But if you want, are you interested? I can provide a safe space for you to explore. But besides that, I think without the constructs, there wouldn't even be a queer label. People would just love who they love and be with who they want to be with, and there would be a freedom of that. And I do think queer people trigger even the folks who are fully straight, trigger that part of like they're bucking the system outwardly. And I do think that there is an aspect of queerness that people who are not queer relate to, or they see themselves in that like bucking of the system, and they struggle with that so much so that they can't even ask the question inside, well, am I queer? Do I feel queer? Am I attracted to this? Do I want to adopt this type of like aesthetic? Like the soft nice guy loves to adopt the queer aesthetic. Oh my god, the painting of the nails or the certain type of dressing, and that's not to
the
say
niggas gonna run true.
They
Yeah,
don't
that
call that metrosexual
Brooklyn.
anymore.
You mean Brooklyn?
Brooklyn, metrosexual, it truly, and they'll be like, nah, they'll unpack everything else besides their sexuality and their queerness, and they'll use the language of like, well, just because I dress this way doesn't mean I'm gay. Absolutely. But what you're not saying is queer men and queerness has allowed you the door, has given you the door to step through in order to experience and your masculinity in that way. And you can't even tie your expression to the queer roots that it came from.
A Brooklyn with some sandals and a cat will ruin your life.
Oh, and a tote bag.
That sounds really Caribbean. That sounds like
And
a Caribbean walking down the street.
Oh God, and a tote bag in a basement apartment. Like, yeah, like yes, absolutely. Also, I gotta say, Mark, I'm gonna let you talk. Ernest, when you said to be fair, like Snoop Dogg was never on that stuff. He was just affiliated. That makes me think of back in the day when Issa Rae was a YouTuber still, right? Like when I was in college, Issa Rae had this thing she used to call Ratchet Piece Theater, where she used to like break down different like ratchet rap songs. And she broke down for my one time, and she like called us. She was like, think about it. Every verse, every comes on like, bitch, you heard I'm down for my niggas. I ride for my niggas. Snoop Dogg comes on at the end like, what them? Yeah, dog, I did it. The chillest song. She said, Snoop Dogg don't fuck with these at all. Every been ready to die for his every verse. Snoop Dogg come on asking questions in a muted voice. What them? Yeah, dog, I did it.
Yeah, that's what
Oh, now I gotta go listen to that.
Oh, y'all think about it, Mark. It's like literally, that's literally the funniest shit ever to me. That's all I ever think about with that song, because they come on, it's so aggressive. Like, bitch, you heard that I ride for these, I die for these.
He never
like my wildin', and then Snoop Dogg come on like, what them? Yeah, dog, we did.
I
Let's
gotta
do
go
it.
listen to
Yeah,
this.
dog, we
Why
did
did I
it.
miss this?
Like I might ride for him. I might.
Y'all gotta be funny. Exactly. I might,
I
like,
might.
I guess. Oh, we going to get them? Yeah, okay.
That remind me, not to get too far, but that remind me of that picture. I think it was like with Snoop and Tupac. And like, I don't know if y'all know what I'm talking about, but Snoop looked like he just,
He's like holding
struck.
Yeah.
Like, cause Tupac was out there. He confronted everybody. Snoop is always like, oh, no, I'm trying to stay in the back. I ain't ready to ride on that, bro.
Like, Snoop
Dang,
is
that's
a
funny.
hilarious figure.
Yeah.
I just wonder if cishet people are tired. Like, are y'all tired of like being so focused on, or homophobes? Like, are y'all exhausted? Like, it's got to be exhausting to keep upholding this idea that your gender and your sexuality is fixed. Like,
it's exhausting to have to still deal with the insanity of that conversation. Like that,
You're
you
putting
have
yourself in a mental jail.
unpack that.
Like, free yourself.
I think a lot of people perform homophobia. Like, recently I realized that, like, I feel like I know people in my, like, family and life that I know are not homophobic. Like, I know they're not. I know their friends, I know what they think, but they'll get around certain people and suddenly, like, use words that I know you don't use them. And I'm like, why are you doing that, friend?
Mm-hmm.
And what's going on? And sometimes I think there's a level of, because listen, I remember when my uncle is gay, right? My uncles are gay. Like my uncle is married to my uncle. They've been my entire life, right? But when I was a little kid, they told me they were roommates. And they never like adjusted, updated the lie. Like they never told me. They assumed that I would figure it out. So in my mind, they're Bert and Ernie, right? Like you know what I mean? Like I have no idea.
Also,
and like I remember, I promise you this. So I remember, like in the Bahamas, this homophobia is aggressive homophobia is the status quo in the Caribbean, right? Like, and certainly in the Bahamas. And I remember being like a little kid and assuming, because like my uncle, like my uncle in my mind, like now as an adult, I'm like, no, my uncle is very, he didn't read gay to me as a kid. I'm like, this loves Whitney Houston, obsessed. He has 2 Christmas trees in the crib, like everything. Like he had a little dog that was dressed up. But I didn't see him that way. Okay. Because he is the male version of my mummy, and my mummy is an aggressive. Huh?
I said, from that description, I just found out I'm gay.
Listen.
You like 2 Christmas trees? That's a little rare.
Christina told you, Mark. Listen, my uncle loved him some Whitney Houston, okay? Like, so I remember, like, my uncle is like the male version of my mommy, and my mommy is a very like serious, like a very so I always like. I remember being a little kid and just assuming he was homophobic, like like repeating something homophobic somebody said or whatever to him, like almost as a little kid, like thinking that he would think this was cool, whatever this older adult just said. And I remember saying it to him, like repeating what they said and looking at his face and like, like not rendering the proof. And that's when I kind of realized, like, by the time when I learned my uncle was gay, that's when I realized, like, there's a certain level of us around here that where other people in your family and the adults or whatever are homophobic and they're acting like this is commonplace and this is what's cool and this is what normal, and they're kind of training the other kids and everybody else to go along with it, to think this is what it is and to repeat and not really realize it until you have a moment to say. And I've noticed like other people in my family do that. Like they will get around other family and assume that they have to be like this, they have to talk like this or whatever, almost like it's easier. People think it's easier sometimes to just be prejudiced in whatever moment when they think, this is why I say why people don't like to normalize it, and they like to think of gay people as some kind of like mythical creature that comes in rare and low numbers. You might find one in the wild because it's easier to think, it's easier to get along and go along. You know what I mean?
For sure.
It's still, to me, like the standard in a lot of social conversation, where even though it might not be openly expressed, like I mean, in terms of being a young man, like in high school, you kind of feel like you just like it's young black men or black men in general, as a group of people who have never like fully been empowered in this country. We try to find various other avenues to express our masculinity and manhood. And unfortunately, a lot of folks have looked through the prism of whiteness, white manhood, which is the worst example, as opposed to realizing who we truly come from as people. We act as, in these conversations, not like this one, but just like in the society, we act like queerness just happened, as if like there wasn't a wide range of expressions of love and gender in Africa. You know what I'm saying? So like even in this conversation, how we're talking about the different things that we have incorrectly identified as masculine. I'm thinking of this Instagram page I follow. I don't know if y'all ever seen with this guy. It basically talks about how we just roast each other over everything. I think it's like Mystic Got Jokes or something. And usually the things that he's getting roasted about are just things that would be looked as slightly weak, maybe, or maybe feminine. Like the most recent one I saw shared with a friend, he's riding his bike with a helmet on. And while he's riding, he stops. And they just start roasting, this riding a bike. And they just start going in on this getting a manicure, or like this in love. Like it's the craziest thing, right? But that's truly how it was growing up. You getting roasted because you holding hands with your girl in the hallway. You know what I'm saying? Like all of these different things are so performative, and it comes to a point where you aren't just performing, you become that thing. And now to me, what I'm seeing with Snoop, and I mean, I don't know, like 50 plus years old, you have to, if you still get uncomfortable in that situation, you're a grandparent now, it might be a time for you to pause and say, damn, I have not truly done enough unlearning. And I think the unfortunate reality is when you have the economic privilege that he has, and the proximity to whiteness that he plays with a lot, he can sometimes just play with that when he wants to and navigate it when he wants to. This past year for a lot of folks, like we would just straight up cancel that. What we saw with the Trump situation, what we see with this, it's like, bro, who you with? Who you stand for, man? I understand you had the show with Martha Stewart and everything, but like, are you truly for your community? I understand you do the mentoring, and shout out to you for doing the mentoring in your community, but like that type of rhetoric is very harmful to us if you really care for the collective liberation of all our people. Because what if one of those young men on your football team tried to express something like that to you?
And
What
that's
they don't shy away from.
if this is what you think. Like, what are you teaching these boys, these other boys and men? That's the thing. Is like people act like people always want to like praise, especially like Black men like this for what they do, and like excuse these things as though like their ideology and what they believe is not important to who they are and what they're teaching. It's like, oh, like, yeah, we want them to mentor and do all these things. But if this is what they think, if you are a homophobe and a misogynist and you see the world, like people like to think of these things as like, this just affects you. Like, this is just your own personal taste and who you like hang out with or something. But no, it's not. You're teaching how you think the world should be. You don't think this should be replicated. To what you said, to Erica said earlier, she would have thought it was a joke if he hadn't gone and said, oh, they're always putting it everywhere. They're putting it everywhere, or whatever. Like he sees it as an agenda. And like Snoop Dogg isn't even just a regular person. This is somebody who spoke, and thousands of Black people like engaged, and more, like thousands of people engaged with what he had to say and jumped on it. Like, yeah, that's my license to say that I feel this way and I don't want these things or whatever represented. So it's like, what is that mentorship? Like, what is the lessons that you're sharing when you mentor these boys and these people?
It's the teaching. You have no issue and you don't shy away after all of these years with Boosie and Snoop and all this stuff. And they're parents and they have a moral compass when it comes to their children. But you've always taught everybody else's children and them to, not shy away from guns, drugs, money, cars, and clothes, like all the other things. But when it comes down to sexuality, you don't want to learn to teach the kids about where babies do and do not come from, and how love is just love. It's too hard for you to do that, but it's easy to go ahead and teach them about all the things that can set them back, that can unalive them. That's easy. But when it comes to things about, and you made a point, it's like, make sure, it's like, you can show them about sex in a heterosexual way on screen, but you don't want to. It's like you don't want to show them anything else because it's something that you don't relate to. And that's where the problem lies. Like, just because Snoop and them don't relate to it, and I'm putting that in air quotes because, they say, we found out about Diddy and what he like, but, just because Snoop Dogg and them don't relate to it, it shouldn't be shown because they don't like it. And what they say as men, misogynist, the patriarchy, all those things, it goes. And that's it. What they say, it goes. And we see that a lot in hip hop as well. So.
Mm-hmm. I don't share this story often because it was actually traumatic for me, but for the sake of the the topic, I'll talk about it, is that when my kid was 2 months or 3 months, they were in the NICU for a while. So they were out of the NICU, I think maybe even 4 months old. I had them in a rainbow onesie and I was holding them and I did a video that said, "Gay baby, it's a gay baby." And that video went viral in a very horrible way, right? You know, you could go viral in ways that are like people celebrate you. You go viral in ways where people are being horrible, and people were horrible, like suggesting that CPS should be called on me, right? And that I was putting things onto my child. Mind you, East couldn't even, feed himself at the time. Like, this is truly ridiculous, the way that people took a 30-second video. And I just think about anytime I'm around young people, the first question that full-grown adults will ask young people is, "Do you have a girlfriend? Do you have a boyfriend?" Right? They are quick. You don't even need to be watching a movie, right? And sexuality is already in the space, right? I will see kids, maybe 2 different genders, playing at the playground, and people will say, "Oh my gosh, I can't wait. Maybe they'll get married. They'll grow up and get married, and I'm already planning their wedding," right? There's so many assertions of heterosexuality, right? It's no such thing as this. And that's what Snoop was asserting, this idea of like a gay agenda, right? And there's just not, it's just a fallacy, right? The straight agenda is alive and well. And anytime folks are pushing up against that, I think Christina said that just the existence of queer and trans people is a threat, right, to upholding this agenda that is truly just a fallacy in and of itself. And it's scary the ways that people will maintain it, right? I don't know who the celebrity is, the white celebrity who has been saying a lot, like "protect the dolls," and been saying that constantly. I can't remember his name, but I just feel like that's very interesting that there's a white celebrity saying protect the dolls, and getting a lot of attention for it. But then here, Lil Nas is not getting any attention any sort of protection at the same time as Snoop Dogg saying, I don't want my young people to see queerness on the thing. I think we have to talk about these things connected in the sense of, as a queer person, a young queer person, people constantly saying, "I don't want to see queerness." You're essentially saying you don't want to see me, right? And that is, direct line to, experiencing psychosis, right? Or wanting to engage in any sort of drug use, because you're constantly bombarded with that message. Why would anybody expect you to have any sort of mental health that is, healthy, if you will, right? Which is arguable if any of us have that. But, constantly being bombarded with homophobia, even from celebrities, right? That is intense.
Think about how irrational it is too in terms of the movie, because so my kids, the daycare they were going to, my oldest child is 12. So this is like the 2010s, which sounds even crazy to say, a whole nother decade. But there was a queer couple there, 2 women, when I'm picking up my kids. So what are you going to do? You going to rush your child out? You go, when you see that the one of the mothers come pick them up, or they come together, you go run and cover their eyes. It's just so irrational, y'all. I mean, have the conversation with your child.
Yeah. Should we not kiss in front of our kid, right? Should we not hold hands? Should we not do any of those,
we gotta police ourselves because of some strangers.
What are y'all saying?
That's exactly what they think, and I'm sure they will be seeking legal avenues to challenge it soon. Because let's not forget, these laws were exactly how they used to have it, and not too far ago. I also think, Erica, I think there's an element of why people aren't championing Lil Nas X, or why you're not seeing sympathy, or why I don't care, is because I think there's an element of people think young queer people deserve these things. If you think about it, the most likely to end up being homeless of young people are young queer teens being kicked out of their family and all this. Or if you even see how you can watch it, and even shows like Pose, you could see how it's shown how the Times received this crisis as you're deserving of it. There's an element of where they feel like they don't people did not like that Lil Nas X was someone they thought they liked, who they feel became gay and immediately had this super gay. Lil Nas X has an entirely different branding and self that he's shown to us since what they thought they were getting on Old Town Road, and they resent him for that. And I think they see this as, this is the consequence of you deciding to go do that gay shit. Because that's how they see it, as a decision. You know what I mean? They see it as he decided to go be on this type of time and he wants attention and yada, yada, yada. And so they see these kinds of things as like the universe punishing you, being punished for being this way. And I think there's an element of that, and people just aren't saying that.
And it's only like there's an element of the fact that he's black as well, because I've seen a lot of like gay Disney white stars who have like who've gone gay. People were mad about it, but there was so much support. Lots of well, they are gay, but when they come out like that, they started off when in the Disney shows, you know, platonic or with the, you know, in a romantic relationship with a male. And I'm talking about the one girl, I can't even remember her.
Demi
She
Lovato?
was extreme. Not Demi, but Demi. That she's one too, but the other one, she's a little newer, the Hannah Montana crew. But she was. Not Amanda Bynes. No, this is later on. Like,
Selena Gomez?
No, look, that's Selena.
JoJo Siwa? No,
JoJo Siwa. Yes.
She's
So much.
She's
Like,
from
that
Disney,
was
right?
crazy. I was just like, what's going on? But now JoJo is marrying a man. Well, straight again, but got to go through the whole phase, the whole phase of being, you know,
they hate that little
gay,
girl.
coming out, referring to themselves as ever. What they wanted to was going against the system. People were saying she's just going through a phase, you know, put her in rehab, but still kept performing, still kept showing at Disney events, was never canceled, always a part of the conversations, even if they were negative, but still had support. And here we're looking, I mean, some of them even got into legal issues, but it was always just going down a dark path, going through things, always that. And here, Lil Nas X, because they want to criminalize, just for being a black gay man. I just feel like and going through something that people go through, a mental breakdown or whatever. We don't even know the facts of the situation, but clearly there was something there, and they want to criminalize that. And we, who should be supporting him, because he didn't turn out to be who we, like you said, who, you know, with the, what was the song, Old Town Road, whatever it was, because he didn't become that, and came out and was actually confident after he got to express himself as to who he was, and he was just pushing the envelope. Then they're like, no, we cannot mess with this person. And then as soon as a moment like this happens, it's like they want Lil Nas X to stay down. And I just want for this moment to pass. And I pray that he gets his support. And I hope it comes out that the police was lying, so that he can really give two middle fingers to everyone. Because in these times, this is what we'll see. We'll see their downfall, and then we won't see them come back. And that's what society will expect. Because again, they don't want queerness, but they really don't want it from a black man at all. So
Can you just correct myself before people get on me? JoJo Siwa is bi, not straight.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, we got to be clear. Yeah.
Run that back. Don't want to.
I think she got married or is getting married now. I'm not sure, to a man. Feminine. She went back. She went back to a very feminine.
Yeah, did you miss
she's
her
not
whole
androgynous anymore.
I don't like that. She said
age though.
She said that she's now feminine. She's who she's supposed to be.
Yeah, she's engaged to a man, and she's like, I don't let that get like I'm pretty sure I seen.
Yeah, she said
she gets to live her life anymore.
She said that
she gets to live her life as
force her into lesbianism.
No, she was a little too like she went hard, okay? Doing a little. I didn't like how she was behaving in front of children. Yes, it wasn't even about her being lesbian. She was out of control.
Okay, no. In fairness, I went and checked it. You know how the internet do. In fairness, she didn't say like, oh, she's not gay anymore, or she's straight or something. She said she doesn't. She feels like she's her identity's evolved from lesbian to queer, so she just doesn't think like gay is a good like label for her. They was running with that all over social media. Like, what she said, I'm not gay anymore. I'm straight.
Yeah, she's a queer trad wife now. Yes.
Yeah.
But she can change. She can do whatever she wants, but not Lil Nas X.
Exactly.
As many of them are, mind you. A lot of trad wives are, but you know.
A lot of trad wives are.
What's interesting too about Lil Nas X is, I mean, I'm not sure if y'all, you know, if anybody went to a PWI or anything, public intoxication was the norm. And we talking underage drinking and various other substances, 18, 19-year-olds. almost always giving passes, pats on the back, rides home, safety precautions. I was recently, and speaking to that, like I was in Nashville recently, and I had no idea about the dynamics of the downtown. Out getting some food with my family one night, and I mean it's literally like a college town for white adults in Nashville. You can count the black people on one hand. So like I recall my first time even being there, I wanted to make sure, like I saw at least a couple of us first before I stepped out and picked up my food. But you quite frequently saw white folks, women, half dressed, white dudes like falling over, stumbling. Ain't nobody bothering them. Ain't nobody saying a word, right? So like you think about this through that prism, and then of course the fact that young black dude is queer, like our presence to them is inherently criminal. We don't get that same assistance, going back to Mark's point at the beginning. Like we don't get that same assistance. We don't like when you police everything, right? When you all you have is a hammer, every situation looks like a nail, and that's kind of how we're looking at it that way. In my opinion.
Yeah. It feels like a show. How y'all feel?
It's a show.
Feels like a show to me.
Sounds like a
Feels
show.
like a show too, man.
Great points, great points, great points, beautiful black people.
Stop what you're doing and listen up. You just watched a video on one of my channels, but the Illuminati verse is huge, and I want to tell you what everything is and how to find it. The Illuminati verse has 6 channels. On the YouTube homepage of any one of those channels, every single channel in the Illuminati verse is featured at the bottom of the page, so you can always easily find them. Okay? Remember I said that. Don't say I ain't tell you how to find it. Subscribe to my main channel, Illuminati, to find my Illuminati productions, which are my long-form video essays and also all of my backlog of content. Subscribe to my second love child, Illuminati Pop, for my weekly video essays analyzing my favorite TV and movie shows and characters. Illuminati Pop also has its own Patreon where you get all of those videos uncensored. Subscribe to my channel, Olay Friends, for my podcast, Olay Friends. New episodes of Olay Friends come out every Sunday at 1 p.m. Eastern. Subscribe to Olay Chill for new episodes of my podcast, Olay Chill, every Tuesday at 1 p.m. Eastern. And also, both Olay Friends and Olay Chill are both available on streaming platforms like Spotify. Subscribe to Illuminati Bites if you want my takes, but you don't have an hour to spend. Subscribe to Illuminati Politics for my political analysis and my State of the Union type addresses on my show O Squared. And last but not least, subscribe to my Substack Illuminati for my written work.